Okay, welcome back to the Workbench build. If you're here now, you know exactly what we're doing, so let's just jump right into it. And if you don't know what we're doing, this is part 3. So click that link up in the top right-hand corner, and we'll meet you back here when you catch up. To make life easy on myself, I went ahead and put the table saw onto its little shelf, and I created a temporary worktop by using just a scrap sheet of MDF and clamping it to the top, as you'll see right about now. There you go. This will give me a temporary outfeed table that will just kind of save my back, and it's going to come in handy almost right away when I take these long 8-foot long boards and I rip them down into thinner pieces so that way I can mill them up properly. These are all rough cut and they need a little love from the joiner, which I'm excited to be able to use because we just put a lot of time into restoring it. For these boards, I'm not looking for anything in particular. I don't want everything to be the exact same width. I'm not worried about it. So I'm just taking these boards, since they vary anywhere from about 8 to 10 inches wide, and I'm cutting them in roughly half. Just pieces that I know are going to be manageable for my joiner. That only takes up to 6 inches. You can joint boards that are longer than 6 inches, but you have to start getting fancy with it, and we'll save that for another time. This is just shop furniture, and it's not really meant to catch anybody's eye. It's meant to be functional. It's meant to get used and abused, and that's exactly what it's going to get. So we'll make it to where it's a workable surface, and other than that, I don't really care if the top has planks that are a little wider than others. This is the first time we get to see the joiner in action after we've done the restore. I've done a couple things in the background to make sure that it works just how I wanted it to work. Obviously, I had to tune everything to make sure I had 90-degree angles on everything and everything was perfectly square. But it worked dead on, and the top was dead flat. It came out beautiful. So I joint 2 faces, and then I took these planks over to the table saw and I did my little resaw trick. So now you can notice that the planks are actually much thinner. These are about 1 inch thick now, and I'm just cleaning up the edges so that way I have nice clean joints when I do my glue up, and that's gonna be next on our list. Now, you've seen me do this before on part 2 when I was doing the top that the joiner actually sits on, but I'm just getting the orientation, and then now I'm marking out the line for the dowels. And then we'll start drilling some dowel holes, we'll add some glue, and we'll get everything clamped up. I'm pretty far off from getting a domino joiner at this point, but boy would it save me time. With everything clamped, we can actually take the table saw back off of its temporary home, and we can put these strips here so that way we can get this backing done. And I just took cutoffs from a 3/4 inch piece of plywood that I had, And this is a scrap piece that I'm using to make sure everything is going to end up sitting flush. And after messing with it over and over again and knocking it out of mark every time I set a nail, I finally got it going, and I added this strip to this side, one to the other side, and then a strip along the top. And then I just plugged some, then I shot some nails into those nail strips. A little tap tap here and tap tap there to make sure everything was sitting where it's supposed to be before I did so. And we'll plug those nail holes in with some wood filler of some sort when we get to painting this thing. Now I decided to add a drawer underneath the table saw. This will give us a place to just drop our things like push sticks. I'll store a couple extra saw blades down there. A couple other things. I'm sure there will be attachments to my table saw, miter gauges, things like that. But we want to make sure we utilize every inch of space possible in a small workbench. And when you have a small shop, little spaces like that can be gold. So I ended up cutting 4 sheets of plywood. We'll use 2 to cover up the outside holes on either side, and then we'll use the other 2 to connect to the inside of the post to give us a flat surface to mount our slides to. When marking out the location for my slide, I just used the width of my square to make a line on both sides, connected it in the middle, and then used that as a reference for my screw location. I pre-drilled with a self-centering bit, and that was it. It's as easy as that. Now, in fixing these to their final location, I used 2 screws, one for each corner to start, and I went about an inch in. This will give me half an inch for a face frame, half an inch for a drawer, and that should line flush with the front. I'm going to just set 1 screw on each side, and then I'll come back with a little square, a little level actually, and I'll make sure that the drawer slides are leveled that way before securing the back screw. So just secure the front screw for now, use your level, straighten everything out, secure the back screw, and then come and add any additional screws later. That screw got stuck in a knot and snapped, so I added another screw underneath it, and it will live there forever. I had to add a brace for the shelf top to sit onto, so I use little Z fasteners. For this brace, I'm gonna just run a thin line all the way across it at about 1/4 of an inch in, and that'll give me the groove for my fastener to sit into. And then I've got a nice little tip for you guys. This is a new segment called Just the Tip, and this is quick and dirty pocket holes. So if you don't have a pocket hole jig, what I did was I just drilled a little hole right there. Doesn't matter what drill bit you use. Cut an angle with a chisel, so that way you have a place for your bit to fit into at an angle there, and just drive it in. Also, another tip is if you're recording, try to keep your hands out of the way. Good job there, jackass. But there you go, quick and dirty pocket holes. These Z fasteners are super easy to use. You're just gonna take a few of them. You're going to insert them into the groove, and then you have a screw hole on the top that's just going to connect to the underside of whatever top you're using. So we'll get the top on there. We'll probably do about 6, it looks like. Yep, did about 6. And I'll crawl down there, and this will take forever. Unfortunately, you won't get to see this, but when I come back up, we will have a secured countertop.
One eternity later.
With the table saw side of the workbench pretty much complete, we can move on to this big center hole, and this is the bulk of the workbench. We're going to do nice deep drawers on one side, and on the other side will be flattened off. I will be adding something else to this side that you'll see probably in the next video, because I didn't quite get as far as I wanted to on this one, so sorry about that, guys, but there will be a part 4. With the measurements that I got, I can go ahead and I can take this big sheet of not so pretty plywood. That's okay, it's going to be hidden on the inside anyways. And I can draw my reference line, and I just cut this freehand because it's actually the sides that need to be straight edge. This top end can kind of be a little bit wonky. I try to get it as straight as possible, and I think I did a pretty good job. But there were a couple little bits where if I was trying to add face frame, there'd be tiny gaps. This is good practice to just kind of freehand stuff if you get the opportunity. It's going to be hidden. It's not hurting anybody. So we cut 3 sheets of plywood, 1 for each side and 1 for roughly the center. We have some strips for spacer blocks, and we're just gonna glue and tack those spacer blocks into place. Most of the strength, actually all of the strength, will come once we get it down inside of the workbench. It will be nailed or screwed to the actual frame of the workbench itself, and then it will be dead solid. This ended up taking a little bit of persuasion, but once I realized that I was trying to shove it in at an angle, and it actually ended up going in quite smooth. I ended up cutting these pieces almost perfect as far as the width goes to fit into this slot, and I was surprised at how perfectly square the inside of the workbench was, considering the other 2 sides. They might look pretty square, and I might do a good job at making them look square, but they're off just slightly, and you can tell when you're cutting pieces, or when I cut the tops for them, it's a little bit off, but that's okay. We all make mistakes. For this backside, I just tapped this big piece of plywood in, and this is actually what made me realize that I had cut this dead square for the center, which actually still impresses me. I just added a couple nails. I didn't add any glue in the event that I need to take this out and maybe mess with some dust collection on the inside. I can reach in from the bottom and kind of push those nails out or hammer those nails out. It's a problem that I don't really suspect, but in the event that I end up there, I didn't completely screw myself. I didn't add any glue. These nails are quite thin. This isn't meant to get pushed from the inside out. The drawers don't even go that far back. Next on our to-do list was to see how many drawers we could actually fit in this location. I knew that in this section I wanted a couple, but in the other section I was only going to really have 1, because those ones are going to be heavy duty slides that are going to actually hold my planer. I ended up for this one opting to do 1 really short drawer. I think it's probably only about 3 to 4 inches deep, and that'll be a place to toss my keys and my phone, pencils, tape measure, all of those things that I use all the time. And then I just split the difference, so that'll give me 3. Next step was to install the drawer slides. Unfortunately, you won't get to see too much of it because I ran into some complications that I'll explain in just a second. But I have these big, heavy-duty drawer slides. These will hold about 150 to 200 pounds. They say 200 pounds, but I'm kind of skeptical on that one. I got them because my planer is going to go in this slot, and it's a big 80-pound. It's a heavy beast. So hopefully these will do the trick. So I was fumbling around with getting this in. It was kind of at an awkward angle, but finally I got the one screw in, and then I put my level on the opposite side so that way I could do my normal trick that I do to level everything out. And that's when my camera, I guess, overheated, and now you won't get to see it. I live in the Central Valley, and the temperature has been horrendous. What I'm showing right now isn't even the bad ones. It's gotten up to 113. But unfortunately for you guys, that means that you don't get to see the process of me installing drawer slides. But that's okay because I'm sure you'll see some of that in the future. Here we're going to just skip ahead and we're going to start creating the drawer boxes. So I'm cutting some thin strips for my short drawer, and then I'll widen the fence on my table saw. And this is so much easier to cut now that I have the outfeed table on the back end. It just feels 100 times safer too. Alright, here's a quick tutorial on how I do my drawers. So first things first, I'm cutting a groove that is 1/2 inch in from the bottom of my drawer. Next, you're gonna adjust your saw blade so that way it's cutting all the way to that groove and only halfway off the material. This is gonna create a nice even little dado slot for you. Remember to be careful when you're cutting material that is much taller than it is wide. You want to make sure that you have complete control over what's in your hand and that it's not going to slip and cause an accident. So just be mindful when you're making cuts like this. 1/2 inch plywood is extremely light, so I feel comfortable doing this. Now this little dado slot here is what you're going for, and you're going for that on all of these 4 pieces. This fits perfectly with a 1/2 inch piece of plywood. That's exactly what you're looking for. Once I have all of my dados cut, I'm going to line up my boards exactly how I want them put together. I'm going to add a little bit of glue and a few brad nails to hold everything together while the glue dries. I've never had any issues with strength. I know 1/2 inch plywood doesn't seem like it would be terribly strong, but I don't know if I said this before, I was able to throw all of my power tools into one of these drawers, and it's still holding up. I haven't had any issues with it, and I've never had any issues with any drawers I've made in the past. When you're making these measurements for your bottom plate, make sure you measure off of each side. Don't measure off of the center because it could be bowed in or bowed outwards, and then you'd end up with pretty decent sized gaps. So go off of the corners, and then just trust that your bottom plate, once you cut it, it's gonna pull everything perfectly into square. And I put glue on the sides up here, and then again I just put a few brad nails in through the side, wait for the glue to dry, and you should be golden. And there you go. Now you have a drawer box. Now you essentially saw me do this earlier where I added my line and then I just lined up my holes with the line, drilled with a self-centering bit, and then throw some screws in there. After that, you can go ahead and install your drawer. It's easy peasy. Alright, this part ended up being a lot longer than I anticipated it being, so we'll do the edge banding on the countertops. We'll do the face frames and the drawer faces, and then this will be one tall drawer that we'll put our planer in. We'll do all of that in the next video. We'll patch this up in these little cracked areas, these little crevices, and fix the screw holes and the dowels, and we'll give it a coat of paint, and that'll be it. And then we'll talk about a couple different things at the end of the next video. I'll go over adjustments that I would make if I was going to build this again. Hopefully by then I can have the build plans ready for you guys, and I'll do two separate ones, one that's identical and one that has the adjustments that I would make if I was building this again, because there are a couple different spaces like here that you could save material and in turn save you some money. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one.